What would happen if one man dared to challenge an entire empire? On a cold morning in 1780, a man walked into a quiet Andean plaza, and within hours, the Spanish colonial order began to collapse. His name was José Gabriel Condorcanqui, the man history would remember as Túpac Amaru II. Everyone remembers the day when José Gabriel Condorcanqui, the man who took the name Túpac Amaru II, walked into the plaza at Tinta and arrested the corregidor. It was November 4th, 1780, a cold Andean morning that would unravel 3 centuries of careful colonial order. Condorcanqui was not a revolutionary by the common modern image. He was a curaca, a local indigenous leader educated in Spanish law, who had petitioned authorities for relief from abusive tribute, forced mita labor, and the venal demands of colonial officials. He arrived that day with a small, determined band and a legal warrant. What followed was an execution in public, the severing of a symbol, the corregidor Antonio de Arriaga, whose corruption had become the spark for wider outrage. This was not a spontaneous riot, it was the unfolding of a broader conspiracy against an extractive system, the Bourbon reforms that had tightened taxes, multiplied officials, and intensified labor drafts for the silver mines of Potosí. Condorcanqui's proclamation called for the end of the mita and abuses by local magistrates, and he invoked the memory of the Inca past to rally Andean communities. News moved faster than the viceroyalty could imagine. Within weeks, the rebellion spread from Tinta to the highland towns and toward Cusco. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you think rebellions like this were inevitable under colonial rule? Indigenous men and women, mestizos, and some dissatisfied criollos joined or sympathized. Other curacas remained loyal to Madrid, torn between survival and solidarity. That split would become crucial. The conspiracy, as the Spanish saw it, was terrifying, an organized attempt to dismantle colonial authority, to end tribute, and to reconstitute local rule. To the rebels, it was a campaign for justice and autonomy. The uprising combined military raids, the seizing of Spanish officials, and a propaganda campaign that challenged the legal and moral foundations of imperial power. Condorcanqui's wife, Micaela Bastidas, emerged as his strategist and lieutenant, overseeing logistics, mustering troops, and trying to keep discipline in an insurgent coalition. The viceroyalty responded with predictably brutal clarity. The crown mobilized militias, hired mercenary officers, and enlisted loyal indigenous elites who feared the collapse of the social order. What began as a legal protest became a full-scale insurrection, and increasingly a war. Battles, reprisal massacres, and scorched earth tactics spread through the southern highlands. The rebels at times threatened Cusco itself, and the authorities, terrified of contagion, staged a counterinsurgency that mixed military might and public theater. By early 1781, the Spanish had captured key leaders through betrayals, battlefield setbacks, and the superior armament of royal forces. Condorcanqui and Micaela were betrayed, seized, and paraded before a justice apparatus meant to reassert royal authority. On May 18, 1781, in the main plaza of Cusco, the crown staged what it hoped would be an end to the conspiracy. Túpac Amaru II and other leaders were sentenced to a public, gruesome execution. The spectacle, brutal mutilation, the dispersal of remains, and the display of heads was intended to terrify resistance into silence. It did not end the ideas that had driven the revolt. The rebellion's suppression was thorough and merciless. Hundreds were killed, leaders tortured, communities punished. Yet the spectacle also exposed the regime's fragility. The echo of the rebellion's grievances over mita, tribute, corruption, and racial injustice echoed outward. Simultaneous revolts, like that of Túpac Katari in Upper Peru, revealed a wider pattern of colonial fracture. For many criollos and reformers, the severity of the repression radicalized opinions that would later feed independence movements across South America. In the end, the crime the Spanish punished was not only murder of an official, it was the larger conspiracy to unmake the colonial bargain. The drama in the plazas of Tinta and Cusco was both a closing of a chapter and the ignition of another. Túpac Amaru II's execution was meant to silence a rebellion. Instead, it entered the annals of memory as proof that empire could be contested and that the legal petitions of an Andean curaca could turn into a movement whose impact outlived those who fell in the streets. The Spanish Empire believed the brutal execution of Túpac Amaru II would erase his rebellion forever, but history tells a different story. The ideas he ignited, justice, autonomy, and resistance, continued to spread across South America, shaping future independence movements. So the real question is, did the empire truly end the rebellion, or did they accidentally create a legend that would inspire generations? If you enjoy historical mysteries and true stories like this, subscribe for more documentaries uncovering the hidden moments that changed history.